friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Em and it's time for a weekly reading update. Also, I mentioned in a video at some point that I was going to be letting go of that goal I had at the beginning of the year of slowing down my reading or reading less, and I was just going to let it be more organic and really not try to control it in any weird way. Like if I just feel like reading, I'm gonna read, and if I feel like watching a TV show instead, then I'm gonna watch the TV show, and I'm not gonna let this weird arbitrary goal that I set for, I'm sure my reasoning in January was great, but it's I don't remember what it is, so we're letting that go. I also listened to a really interesting little podcast, like oral essay about optimization culture and how that relates to this drive on bookish social media to have that 5-star reading experience, and how on BookTube, on Bookstagram, I'm not on TikTok, but I imagine it's on TikTok as well, that readers are always looking for a 5-star book, and if you don't have any 5 stars in 1 month, then that month is generally treated as a bust. And it was really interesting. It was on Novel Pairing's podcast. I just joined their Patreon this month, and it was just this 10-minute episode that Chelsea released today, and I found really interesting, and it's something I want to think on more of, why we are, not everybody obviously, but why generally we are defining our reading experiences based on how many 5-star reads we have. So something to think about, something I'm definitely going to be thinking about a lot as I read in the next week, maybe in the next month, we'll see. Especially insightful once I reveal what a mess my currently reading situation is in this moment. But first, let's talk about what I read this week. I DNF'd one book. I DNF'd Booked by Jen McKinley. I had the ALC from Libro FM, and then I also, the ebook is on Kobo Plus, and it's 4 romance novellas that are based around books. I read the first one and it was boring. I don't know what else to say. It's just boring. I think a novella is too short to introduce 2 brand new characters and believably communicate that they are going to fall in love and have a happily ever after or a happily for now. I just didn't care. This first novella relied so much on a miscommunication trope. Like that was the whole conflict, was just that they did not communicate with each other. And I didn't really like the heroine, and if I don't love the heroine in a romance novel, I can't read it, or I'm not gonna love it. Like, it doesn't matter how good the hero is, it doesn't matter how great the supporting characters are. I need to be absolutely in love with the heroine for a romance novel to work for me, and she did not work for me at all. So I just DNF'd it. So that's fine. I am proud of myself for recognizing it, because I definitely thought about pushing through it, but I have too much to read to be bored by a book. And after that, okay, one of them I can't talk about because that is for the vlog that should be up on Wednesday. Fingers crossed. I finished all the books. Now I just gotta edit it all together, but it's long. I'm a little nervous about putting out a long reading vlog, even though I really love watching them. So we'll save that book for later. I did finish Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. I had the audiobook from Libro FM. It was an ALC in January. And I don't know what I felt about this book. So I will try to keep this spoiler free. See if I can talk through this and have some like book therapy. I knew that this was written in journal entry format. I did not realize it was historical. So this takes place in the 1909. Okay, so a little bit later. 1909, and you're following Emily Wilde, who is a professor of fairies, basically. And she works at Cambridge. And in this, like, it's like historical Our World, except fairies are real, and studying fairies is a science. And so Emily is a scholar and is writing what will be the first encyclopedia of fairy lore. And so she is going to, it just says it's a village in the far north, but had that like Netherlands feel to it. And she's there to conduct 6 months of research, and eventually her kind of like professional rival, but also friend, Wendell, joins her. And here's where I struggled, is I would say Emily's tone in her journal entries is very snooty, and that she is very much one of those very intelligent academic types who is not great at interpersonal relationships or person-to-person communication, and is not very emotional. All of which I have liked in characters in the past. However, I think because this is journal entries, and so you're fine, everything is past tense, and it's pretty much all in Emily's voice because she is so emotionally detached. I really struggled with feeling like I should care about what is happening. It does pick up. There's a POV switch for a little bit partway through the book, and I really enjoyed that POV switch. It was like the jolt that I needed to keep going because I was strongly considering DNFing. So that POV shift really helped me stay with the book. And then after that POV switch, because I got the emotional connection that I was really looking for, then I was able to help transfer it to, that helped me to transfer those feelings into the book once I got back to Emily's perspective. But I really, even at the end when there is high stakes, a lot of like really climactic stuff was happening, I really struggled to be invested and to care in what is happening. I also heard that this had a romance, and like kinda, but I would not say it's a big part of the book. It's pretty minor. So if you are wanting like a fairy romance or a romance in a fairy book, this is not going to deliver on those romance vibes. The romance is maybe the C plot, and Emily is not even like, I don't know. I never bought that she was fully in on this romance. And I saw a comment somewhere where somebody was speculating if Emily was Ace or Arrow, because of how like lackluster she kind of is about her romantic interest. I don't remember what I even gave it. It took me a while to come up with a star rating, and now I don't even remember what my star rating was. So this is supposed to be the first book in a series. I probably won't continue because I just don't know if I'm invested enough to continue. I would say if you are looking for a fairy book with a romance, read Half a Soul by, oh no, I forgot. Read this one. Because this, I kept thinking about Half a Soul while I was reading Emily Wilde, and I think they're trying to do similar things in, like, the fairies in both books are dangerous and mischievous and vengeful, and you have to be so careful about the deals you make and the words you use when you're talking to them, and I like that malicious take on fairies, but I liked what Half a Soul had to say better. I liked the commentary about our world in this one a lot better. I like the romance. We also have a character in this one who is emotionally detached, though for very different reasons. But even in that emotional detachment, the way the book is written, it was so much easier to be invested and to relate to that character than it was in this one. So that was really long about one book. And then I also read Ejaculate Responsibly, A Whole New Way to Think About Abortion by Gabrielle Belair. And this is a short book. It took me 3 days to read. I think all the information in here is really valuable. I think she has some really good arguments. I think she has some really good points. She points out a lot of the hypocrisy in how societally we treat women in regards to sex and pregnancy and abortion and parenthood, and how we treat men in relation to all those things. Like in the beginning, she acknowledges that this book takes it from a very cis-het white lens. There's really no mention of how abortion affects LGBTQ people. There's no mention of how, she briefly touches on how much higher the pregnancy mortality rate is for people of color, but that's really the only acknowledgement. It was very one lens for a good chunk. She also repeats herself a lot. I think the fact that this book exists is really great. However, I do not think people who are pro-choice or pro-abortion are the target audience for this book, and I have a feeling that those are the people that are reading this book. I think this should go into the hands of people who don't have a uterus or don't have a good understanding of pregnancy and childbearing, and just think that having a child is easy peasy. I think this should go into the hands of people who say adoption is just as valid of an option as an abortion is, because that's not true. So I don't think I was the reader for this book, because I am very knowledgeable about all the things that she was talking about, and so a lot of it was repeat information. And like I said, she used the same arguments multiple times, which I think is great if this is new information and the person reading this needs that information really hammered home, like really needs to get the point. I did not need to get the point. I already got the point. This was very much a preaching to the choir kind of book, but unfortunately it was not in a cathartic way for me as a reader. All right, let's get into the hot mess that is my currently reading stack. So first off, as a disclaimer, I had a realization this week that I start reading too many books when I am having trouble focusing, and I will pick up book after book after book looking for something to grab me, and that's how I end up reading 7 books. I don't know how I'm going to combat that, but that's where I am right now. So first off, this is going to be a super slow read, so I will not update on this every week, but I am going to be reading this for the next 2 months. I am going to be reading the Odyssey, the Emily Wilson translation, and I am reading this along with Novel Pairings podcast. They are doing a real slow deep dive of it this summer, as I think most people around my age went through a super intense mythology phase as a kid, and I have a lot of knowledge about Greek mythology, but I've never read the Odyssey, the actual Odyssey. I've read retellings and I've seen, lots of media around it, but I've never actually read the original book. or the original poem. So I love to do like a read along with a podcast. I'm just wrapping up a year-long reread of Pride and Prejudice that I have done in conjunction with a podcast that is deep diving it, and it has been great, and I've gotten so much out of reading that classic with a guide. So I'm really excited. So I will not update about this every week, because that would be 2 months of talking about the Odyssey, and I don't think that'd be very interesting content, but I am going to be reading this. I am almost done with Hotel of Secrets by Diana Biller. My husband had to listen to me do a TED Talk about her last night. I think Diana Biller is right now my favorite romance author. This is her third book. So her third book that I have read. Widow of Rose House is one of my absolutely most favorite books of all time. I also really liked The Brightest Star in Paris. I didn't love it as much, but I did like it. And I am in love with Hotel of Secrets. I am so close to being done, but Diana Biller writes romances where my chest like hurts in the best way when I am reading her books. I don't know how else to explain it, but I love how she writes two people falling in love. I love her secondary characters. They are always just as well-rounded and just as fleshed out as her two main characters. And her books aren't super steamy. So I think if you're like spice adverse, you could read these and be okay. They do have fairly explicit scenes, but you gotta wait for a long time to get to them, because she does such a good job of building these two people becoming emotionally intimate with each other before they become physically intimate with each other. And I love the way that they like learn to support each other and care for each other. And I almost started crying last night when I was talking about this book to my husband. Well, just talking about Diana Biller in general. This is how I jumpstart feeling things. Like when I'm having a hard time accessing my emotions, or I'm really stressed out, or I've been needing some sort of release for all the feelings, but she's how I like hotwire my feelings into activating. And I just love her so much. I love her world. I love that we have a historical romance that is not in England. This is set in Vienna. And I love how she writes Vienna, and this hotel that our main character Maria runs, and the wonderful, kooky, caring, loyal people that inhabit the hotel. Yeah, it's just all, there's spy stuff, there's a mystery, there's action, there's adventure, there's romance, I don't know what else you need. Anyways, I think you should read it. It's fantastic. If you like historical romance, if you like historical fiction, I think you should read it. I think you should read all of Diana Biller's books, because I think she does such a wonderful job of crafting a story and crafting characters that you just cannot help but fall in love with. And I'm not even done, friends. I am not even done with this book yet. So I have, 100 pages? I have like an hour left of reading, and I'm just stunned. Okay, on E, I'm reading that's my cover. That's my on ebook. I am reading an arc. This is Calamity by Constance Fay. This is going to be one of Bramble's first few titles. Bramble is the sci-fi fantasy romance imprint coming from Tor. And this comes out in end of October, beginning of November. I can't remember exactly. I'll put the date. There's not even a cover for it yet. I don't know why I'm reading it this early, but Bramble sent me an email, and the blurb for it said it's good for fans of Firefly and Alona Andrews, and it's a sci-fi romance, and I don't know. Sure, yeah, great. Those are super effective buzzwords for me. I'm in. Let's do it. I'm not very far in, so to be continued. I'll talk more about it probably next week. I also started Paladin's Something by T. Kingfisher, which is the third book in the Saint of Steel series. I'm looking up what the actual book is called. The actual book is called Paladin's Hope. Again, not very far in, so I don't really have a whole lot of a plot. We seem to be continuing what happened in Paladin's Strength, with figuring out what is going on with the murders. And we have a queer couple, finally. We have Piper, who is a doctor, and Galen, who has been in the background for Paladin's Grace and Paladin's Strength. So Galen is our Paladin. And yeah, it's just, I mean, T. Kingfisher is pure comfort for me at this point. And then I have two books that I started and then I kind of set aside because they were books that I started in my desperation to find something to hold my attention. And I ended up settling on Paladin's Hope in that moment. But I started Caribbean Heiress in Paris by Adriana Herrera. And this is another historical romance. I'm going to wait until I finish Diana Biller's book before I really dive into this one. I did start it on audio as well, and I don't love the audiobook. I'm having a harder time tracking it on audio than I am reading it physically. But this is set in Paris, and the main character, Luz, her family owns a rum distillery, and so she's at Paris for this convention. And yeah, I don't know more than that at this point. I'm so early on in the book, but yeah, I'll be continuing with this one once I finish Hotel of Secrets. And then I also started Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. This is her sci-fi debut, and this is the Illumicrate copy of the book. And I don't know about this one yet. I'm okay, also only like 30 pages in, so real early days. But the world that our main character lives in is really, I don't know if patriarchal is the right word, but it's very rigid. And who gets to exist and be who they are in this world is very rigid. And I'm assuming she is going to break free of that and start some change in the world, or go somewhere else where the system is not so rigid. But I don't know if that is a book that I have the bandwidth to engage with right now. Also, the content warnings in the beginning of the book are pretty long. It says it contains sexist, homophobic, transphobic, racist, and ableist attitudes, sexual assault. There's also discussion of forced pregnancy, violence, child abuse, radicalization as child abuse, genocide, suicidal ideation, and suicide. And I don't know that I have it in me to consume all of those right now. So TBD, I guess, on if I will read Some Desperate Glory, or if I decide it's just not the right book for me and pass it off to someone else. And then, so I can't imagine I am going to finish all of these in the next week. That seems very unrealistic. However, I would really love to start Don't Fear the Reaper in the next week, because I read My Heart is a Chainsaw last month and really loved it. And my husband just started Don't Fear the Reaper in this past week, and he really wants me to start reading it so we can talk about it. So I am going to try and squeeze that one in. But that is probably it for my predictions on what I am going to start in this next week. I am contemplating doing a library ban in July so I can really focus on just reading my own books, because the library has been very shiny and distracting lately, which I love the library. But I also would really like to get my unread TBR to be under 100 by the end of the year. and currently I'm at 117. And this time last year, I think I was at 170. So we're making good, I'm making good progress, but I would really like to have that be the focus for at least a month, if not a little bit longer. But that is the end of this video. If you have made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around and spending your precious time with me. Man, if you have read Emily Wilde and you want to talk me through to help me figure out how I feel about it, I would love some book therapy in the comments. If not, if you want to just leave an emoji, let's do some sort of flower. And I hope you all have a great rest of wherever you are in your day and week. And I hope you read something you really love this week. All right. Bye, friends.